Trojan, Barbie the Marine, I wouldn't be surprised by, it's also,
Solo in the spotlight,
yeah,
yes.
there's something so iconic about Barbie as this sort of indestructible figure of womanhood, or indestructible figure of plastic, really, and there's, I think with this particular play, I was really looking for that line between what could be mended and what can't be mended. And this, to me, very heartbreaking idea that a doll can be mended but a human body can't. And that Lottie, my doll repairer in the play, she's very British and she's sort of cheerful and she can mend things, and yet no one can mend actual humans. And that double vision that sort of sits together in the play. And I think too the damage from other people's wars, on some level I think we carry it because we are connected as human beings. I think there's something psychically that connects us all, and we feel the wound of that and we feel the pain of it, but in a way we're in a sort of immoral politics where we can't express that in any human way. So I guess, for me, there's lots of things about this play, but for me the very centre of this play, the very heart of it, is that moment where Hecuba and Lottie are mending a doll together. And for Lottie, it's a doll and she cares, and for Hecuba, it's a dead body. And those two visions will never meet, but at the same time, these two women are helping each other across a divide that can't usually be breached, doing what women have always done, which is trying to repair the damage left behind. So that double vision is very important to me.
Well, that takes me to the topic I wanted to come to. So
yes.
Thank you for the segue. The role of women.
Yes.
It is, Euripides is famous for the roles he gives to women. Your
yes.
play has all these wonderful roles for women, and certainly that last image is an image of nurturing women.
Yeah. Yes.
Barbie is not necessarily the image of the nurturing
no,
mother, however.
No, that's right.
As everyone knows, much has been said about the impossible ideal and perhaps even the damage done to young girls who play with Barbie dolls and think, that's the silhouette that I need to have.
Yes.
Is that uncomfortable re-imaging of the woman's body? Is that part of what's going on in this play? You have a wonderful Helen of Troy.
Well, Helen is a little Barbie-ish too.
Okay,
but in my mind, Helen is the military genius of the play. I mean, I think her point of view has a lot of persuasive power, actually. I mean, she doesn't see the point in all the moaning and wailing. She thinks they should get on with things, and she's the only one that escapes. Lottie's rescued, but Helen is the only one who actually, by her own wits, plots her way out. And I think, I'm fascinated by that kind of Hollywood diva person, and also by, I guess, in my own family, the women are generally very practical and very stoic, and they soldier on, and I've often felt a great incapacity around people like that, because they can do things by not being open to the moaning and the wailing and the depths and the this and the that I never can. So there's a kind of ferocious practicality to a Barbie and to a Helen that I'm fascinated by and I admire. But I think in terms of the thing about girls and dolls, Polly is really the centre of that question for me, because in a way, Polly is a love poem to my niece Chella, because I've watched this girl grow up, and because I teach, I also know a lot of young people, and I meet these fiery, brilliant, creative, young women and young men. But in this particular story, I'm thinking about what happens to the women. I get so tired of reading, even Euripides, who is God and I adore him, it's always that the young girl gets sacrificed. And I'm so bored with these virgins getting sacrificed. And, so for me, Polly is someone who wants to make things. She doesn't want to be the one that gets turned into a work of art, even though the terrible thing is at the end of the play she does, but that's fate, right? But she wants to be an artist herself. So she's the one who wants to make things out of these broken bodies and these broken dolls. So, and I think too, what you're saying about are girls damaged by Barbies. I used to think about that too, but now that I've watched these girls that I know with their Barbies, they rip their heads off. They scribble all over them. They dress them up as pirates.
I know a little girl who used one as a hammer.
Yeah. Perfect use of the Barbie.
They don't have to be gender-specific uses, these Barbies, yes. Indeed. Fascinating. Well, now Trojan Barbie is
Yes.
itself a kind of mashup, right?
Yes.
A car crash right
Yes.
there in the name. To realize that sort of unlikely juxtaposition in the theater, you've chosen a style that is not strictly realistic.
True.
Again, I reference my students who have been marched through the parade of realism, through Ibsen, through Strindberg, through Chekhov, and then now the responses to realism. They're working on Brecht right now and how he has influenced later things.
Great.
How did you find your style? Are there other playwrights? We know you love Euripides, who is God.
Yes.
But are there other playwrights who have been influential? I mentioned Carol Churchill earlier on.
Yes.
Is she a factor?
I admire Carol Churchill tremendously because I think she reinvents the form of her plays in terms of the question she's investigating with every play. So to me, she's a very aesthetically and intellectually active playwright. She doesn't have a style and then impose it like a template on every new thing she writes. And I find that amazingly exciting. Yeah. And I also think that she's, she comes, the British left-wing tradition is very strong in playwriting, and there's that argument that that aesthetics and politics are sort of very vitally linked, and in the British theatre, the tradition in the left is very much that there's an argument against realism that comes from the left, as well as the social realist argument, and so I see a lot of Brecht in Carol Churchill, in her use of the gesture, and juxtaposition, the shock of juxtaposition, I guess. And I also, another thing I really admire about her is her incredible pared downness and the way that she can make very human characters and stories also have a big political resonance. So, one of my favourite plays of hers is Far Away, where we have that. Do people know that play? Because it'll be boring if you don't know it. But okay, it's a very pared down. There's a very pared down little sequence that's just a conversation between two people in a hat factory, and then there's this huge non-verbal parade scene in the middle of it. And then we go back to this little conversation in the hat factory, but the conversation has been completely changed in its meaning by the physical force of what we've seen visually. So I think I admire her because she works with the visual and the verbal elements so strongly in juxtaposition in her plays. I love a lot of playwrights, I guess.
You mentioned Shakespeare in an interview, I think, with the Crimson. You had to tick him off. And, of course, he has a famous speech in Hamlet about Hecuba, who is one of your characters. Was that at all an influence? What did you take from Shakespeare?
I'm a little bit scared of Shakespeare. I sort of skirt around Shakespeare in a way, I suppose the Greeks are more close to my heart in a lot of ways. Although I love The Tempest. That's probably my favourite play in Shakespeare. And Lear. I love that scene in King Lear where the walk up the cliff and the non-walk up the cliff. Who else? Since I've come to the States, one of the really exciting things for me about relocating to this country is the different voices and languages that are going on in my ear, and the challenge that is for a writer, actually, because you're very embedded in your own vernacular, and so moving sidewards can be hard. But I've really fallen in love with a lot of the Latino playwriting in this country, and I think the magic realism quality of a lot of that work, which again, like the British playwrights, kind of relates aesthetics to political questioning, and there's a beautiful lushness in the language. So people like Jose Rivera, his plays references to Salvador Dali make me hot. I love Nilo Cruz's writing, Migdalia Cruz, Octavio Solis, a wonderful contemporary playwright who had a big play on in New Haven recently. So that strand is I was very in love with it when I first came here, and now I'm a little less sparkly-eyed, but it's... So I guess there's some of the things. And I am a big fan of Ibsen and Chekhov and those people too. I mean, I can't write that kind of play to save my life, but I think they're mighty. Yeah.
Well, I'm